everyone, and welcome to YouthLINE Live. This June 6, 2016, I will be your host for today, Kayla LeBeau, and we've got our co-host,
Katya,
in the house, Double K. So, today we're going to be focusing on a topic that may be hitting very close to home for a lot of our viewers. Our co-host here has experienced it personally. So with no further ado, our topic today will be on divorce. So, I'm not sure if you guys know it or not, but divorce is actually just as common and happening just as often as marriage. Do you by any chance, Katya, happen to know what the statistic is on how many people get divorced?
Yes, I actually researched this yesterday. Every 36 seconds is when a married couple gets divorced.
Correct, that's true. So, as Katya said, that every 36 seconds, somebody in the U.S., a couple, is actually getting divorced. Additionally, first-time marriages is expected to be a 50% divorce rate. So today we're going to be talking about why we think that happens and how it pretty much affects other people that are involved. Because although when people decide to get divorced, they tend to think it's really for their better or for their worse, it actually does in fact affect other people around them. So I'm going to go ahead and start asking Katya some questions. If any of you guys at home are watching and have questions, feel free to call us. Our number is at the bottom of the screen. But Katya has been very nice enough to volunteer and talk about some personal experiences. So Katya, you had mentioned that your parents got divorced. Do you remember how you felt or how they told you?
So again, like what Kayla said, my parents got divorced when I was 7.
Mm-hmm.
It was really weird because I was so young, so it was kind of like different and harder to understand as a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
My parents didn't really tell me in the beginning. I kind of just saw what happened. There was one day where my mom just didn't come home, and later on my dad got a call saying that she's not coming back, and my dad just went off and just like broke some glasses, and that's how I knew something was wrong. And later on I figured out that she wasn't coming, like since she wasn't coming home, I put a picture in my mind saying that she's no longer gonna like be with us. And then later on my dad told me when I was like ready.
And so as you mentioned, you were only 7 years old. I know now, times have changed. Obviously, it's almost 10 years later. Divorce is a little bit more common, even on our shows that we watch, our cartoons. That must have been a new experience. Like, at that time, did you know anybody else that was divorced or what that was about?
Yes, actually, my best friend's parents was actually already divorced around that time. So having someone was actually someone to connect with in a certain way was actually making our bond closer, and it made me better to have someone by my side through that process.
And that must have been very helpful because I know there's a lot of people out there who maybe don't know anybody, and so for kids especially, it's very difficult to be able to adapt or go through that process on their own. So you're definitely one of the lucky few who were able to have their best friend go through that exact same experience. So with regards to the whole divorce process, would you say that it affected you emotionally or physically in any way? Did you notice any difference with how you were acting or how you were feeling as a result of that situation?
Yes, of course. Actually separated myself a little bit with my family. I closed myself. I would lock myself in the room. I just wouldn't talk to my dad or my siblings. I felt that it wasn't necessary because of the divorce. It's like, oh, it was my fault. I blamed it on myself. And that's what most kids think nowadays. They blame it on themselves because they don't have that closure that their family and their parents give them. So I was basically isolated throughout the whole time. And later on I had more help, so it brought me a little more out. And actually I'm still till this day fixing the relationship I have with my family since I reacted the way I did.
Okay. And that's something that actually I've heard quite often with regards to children who have parents that have divorced. Did you have siblings?
Yes, I'm the oldest of 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did they kind of look up to you? Like how did that work out? Do you know if they were feeling the same way since they were younger than you? maybe they didn't necessarily understand it in the same way, but how did you go about that?
Actually, since I didn't really, the first couple of years, I didn't, as I said before, I didn't communicate a lot with my siblings. Later on, I seen my brother cry, and I asked him what's wrong. He's like, oh, I miss my mom, and stuff like that. So just seeing them hurt in that way, it made me it made me realize that I wasn't the only one hurt. And till this day, my little sister doesn't know who her mom is, so it's kind of, I don't want to tell her like yet, but she has to know soon, because she's getting older, and it's gonna affect her too, because her whole life she didn't have a mother figure. So I was basically her mother figure.
And so for other children that, you know, maybe watching, or people that may be contemplating divorce, what are some things that really helped you that you would recommend for other kids that may be in that same situation?
I would say join a program, join some sports, you know, do something that you love to do. If you like to draw. If you like to sing, just do it, because it relaxes your mind a lot and helps you out throughout the process of how you're going to take it.
I think that's very important, because if you don't have the proper amount of distraction, then you end up being fixated on this concept. And the more you think about it, the more it eats you up, and the more you start thinking of things that may sound crazy to other people, but you'll convince yourself like, oh, it's my fault, or oh, if I would have done this differently, or if I would have done that differently. So as you mentioned, I think it is really important to make sure that you engage in other activities as well, just so that you're not focusing on it all the time. So it's been about 9 years since your parents have divorced, and do you feel as though it still affects you today the same way it did when you were 7?
Yes, actually, I got into recent contact with my mom, although I know that she lives in LA. I know that I have 2 step siblings, so it's kind of like hard for me to process it, but I did that because I actually wanted closure. I just wanted to know what happened and know the situation I was in, because I feel like if I don't have this closure, it's gonna eat me up forever. I'm always gonna remember it, of course, but at the same time, I want to know how. I want it to end in my heart. Like I don't want it to feel pain no more. I don't want to feel like it's my fault, and I actually want to like stop that feeling.
Understand. And I think that's something that's really important, especially for people that are like contemplating getting a divorce. Obviously, for anyone that's gotten a divorce or is planning to get a divorce, it's not necessarily a decision you take in like a second. I mean, granted, you may be having an argument and you're like, oh, that's it, I want a divorce. But usually it's a bunch of things that, you know, lead to that event. And so I think often it's really important to let, you know, others who are involved know what's happening. Maybe if it's not the right time, you know, when they're younger, at least when they're older, because otherwise they do end up, you know, for the rest of their life not knowing, is it my fault? You know, there's no closure. And so, Katya, were you actually able to contact your mom?
Because I was so scared, I actually deleted the message, and it's kind of, I reset it like 3 times, but I deleted it like 4. So it's that I'm just so scared of what the response is, and I actually have therapy, so it helps me with like how to approach the situation, but at the same time, there's still something holding me back in order for me to contact her.
Got it. And so you mentioned therapy. Like, has therapy been something that you would recommend for others? Do you feel as though it's really helped you, or do you feel as though it's just something you do just because you're maybe encouraged to do it?
Actually, it has helped me a lot, but like some people say, it's not always for everybody. But for me in my situation, it actually helped me to be more open-minded and see in different perspectives on like my dad and on my mom. So like, why did it happen? And it just made me realize what it just really is.
Great. So thank you so much for providing us on so much insight and sharing a lot of your personal experience. So you guys are always welcome to come in and call us as well if you have any questions for Katya or myself. But right now we're going to move along into relationships today, and it's 2016, and divorce today, and the trends that have been going on. So actually, I hear there's like shows based on divorces, there's shows based on cheating. Have you ever heard of the show Cheaters?
No, I actually haven't.
Have you heard? I'm sure you had to have heard of some sort of relationshipy divorcee show.
Yeah, there's actually this one show that that sticks to mind. It's called Once and Again. It's actually a TV show based on divorced parents, and the first couple episodes is about how life after a divorce. So that the ex-husband is still around. It's kind of weird because they have kids and they're like, oh, I kind of want my kid. And it's like tug of war, basically.
Yeah.
And so that's what the first couple of episodes is. And then later on it shows that how the hardships of the divorce, how saying how to be financially stable and finding another job and stuff like that is basically what really sums up the whole TV show.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting because I don't know if you guys watch a lot of reality shows and stuff like that. I have to say I was obsessed with Keeping Up with the Kardashians and the Kardashian clan. And like a lot of the people, that I was following on Instagram, on Snapchat, through the reality shows have been getting married so quickly and then divorced just as quick.
Like Kim Kardashian.
Khloe, divorced Lamar. There's a lot of stuff going on with Kourtney, infidelity and stuff like that. So it's like everywhere we go, relationship, people tend to get married quicker, and at the same time, they tend to get divorced quicker because, love isn't just, this physical thing. It's this physical, emotional, chemical imbalance that's going on where it's, unexplainable feelings. Some people are like, oh, I have to marry this person. And I feel as though in the generation that we live today, it's more and more common. There's this saying, "bae," that people use nowadays, and the little kids are oh, that's the love of my life, or that's my wifey, or that's my hubby. And when I was little in kindergarten, I had my first fake husband in my marriage. But for example, do you have any friends that you refer to their boyfriend or their girlfriend as wifey or hubby or something?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I know who've been dating for more than 4 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
They're like, that's my husband, and stuff. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because it's the love that I had when I was in kindergarten was obviously different than my high school boyfriend or my middle school boyfriend. And as someone who's in their late 20s, the person that I was then isn't the same person that I am today, and it's hard enough to realize who you are yourself and to get to know yourself. So I can't even imagine being able to find someone to be that's going to be my husband, I'm making it official, or my wife and I'm making it official. And I've noticed that's a new trend. It's easier for people to get into these relationships. For example, I feel back in the day, maybe your grandparents or my grandparents, they would get married to have kids and they would get married young, but the things back then were different. Divorce wasn't a common thing. And it's also based on culture. In my culture, I'm half Persian, divorce is a big no-no. Regardless of how horrible your relationship is, it's considered bad for your family if you have a divorce, and that's unhealthy too. So I mean, divorce has its times where it's necessary, but I feel as though as long as we make sure that before we get into a marriage, we're getting into it for the right reasons, and we know for sure, then it would be okay. So talking about divorce, Katya, I'm going to pick your head. Do you think you can name a couple reasons why divorce would be a good thing, or something not necessarily seen as negative?
It can be better for your health, basically.
Okay.
There's a lot of people that divorce because there's a lack of communication. There's arguing, and abuse. So if you're getting abused, there's some people are too scared to divorce a person because they feel like they're going to get more hurt.
Exactly.
But at the same time, that's one of also the most common reasons that people get a divorce, because they're getting abused.
Exactly. And so I definitely would have to agree with Katya. I think infidelity, cheating, emotional abuse, physical abuse, lack of communication, consistent arguing, those are definitely, I would say, valid reasons for divorce. Although, who am I to say? I'm not even married. But just from an outside perspective, I would agree with those. And it's funny because for those exact reasons, there are a bunch of attorneys in New York who are now making millions of dollars a year. The divorce industry is actually a billion, with a B, billion-dollar industry. People are making so much money off of facilitating the divorce process for people. So just off the top of your head, Katya, do you have a guess as to how much on average a divorce costs? a couple? Just, you could totally guess.
I don't know, 6,000?
Yeah, so it's actually anywhere from 5 to 15,000 minimum, and it
That's
goes
a lot
up
of money.
more. Yeah, so divorce courts actually have the most amount of money going through them than any other court that we have. Yeah, it's crazy because if you think about it, you have to divide the house, the alimony, the child support, the this, the that. Like, it's a very expensive process, and it's not just like, oh, okay, has me and whoever else is getting divorced, okay, like, I think that's a fair amount, let's do that. Often it's like arguing, no, that's too much, that's too little, well, I had this first, and we got this together, no, it's ours, it's yours. So it's like this long struggle of like trying to figure out what to do, and it's really expensive. So much so that these people in New York are realizing, look, divorce is really, really common, and it's kind of guaranteed where we live. It's happening every 36 seconds. 50% of all first marriages are expected to fail. Let's make money off of this. So we have lawyers that are like banking off of it. They have this thing called the divorce hotel, where you can actually go in with your significant other on a Friday, married, and then leave on a Monday, single. They have like a spa, they have 2 lawyers come, and instead of them emailing back and forth, they set up everything. They can discuss what's going on. You are kind of doing it in a way that's not like, like pushed and like taking like months and months and months. It happens in 3 days, and then it's done, and it's only $5,000. So instead of like wasting all this money like dragging it out, if that works for you, that's what people are doing. And they're even having these things called divorce parties, which are just as big as your wedding. Have you heard of this, Katya?
A little bit. It's kind of what I heard. It's basically you're partying for your divorce. Basically.
Yep, and so they spend anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000, and it's to let your family know, like, hey, I'm okay. Like, this divorce, I can like party because I'm not like freaking out or upset.
I'm single.
I'm single, so like, yeah, let's mingle. Like, who wants to come to my divorce party? So it's like crazy the world that we live in. It's completely changed from when I was a kid, from my grandparents, from your grandparents. It's way more accepted, and it's just like totally a different world that we live in. So with that being said, Katya, like, do you think that your parents' divorce has affected the way you will like feel about relationships or getting married one day or anything like that?
A bit. I would say I would be a little bit more scared because I experienced my parents' divorce. It's like, they're gonna get they got divorced. So what if I get divorced too? Mm-hmm. How am I gonna feel? And if I have kids, their heads are gonna get like twirled and messed up, and I need to like provide for them, and it's gonna be crazy. But at the same time, I feel like I know where they came from, and I know where I want to go, so I know my values are, so taking that into consideration.
Yeah, and I think that's a very, very important point. And so I feel as though, even though divorce often ends up in like heartache and it's so sad, it's definitely a very good learning lesson. And it's like, I feel like you are much more knowledgeable now than maybe somebody else who hasn't experienced that, because you're gonna most likely value marriage more and see it for the bigger picture long term, and you really understand how it would affect your family if you have one. And I think that's like really important because, like we were talking about, we have little kids nowadays, like, oh, that's my bae, oh, that's my whoever, and just like getting the idea that like, even though it's temporary, like, who cares, let's just make it permanent and see if it works out. And if it doesn't, oh well, we'll just get a divorce. But it's never just a divorce. Like, often there are other people that are involved. So this is like a really hard question, but if you could go back in time and make it so that your parents wouldn't have gotten a divorce, do you think you would, like, swish that magic wand and reverse that situation, or do you think that you would leave it as is?
Actually, I thought about this a couple years ago, because I noticed that my mom actually came back for a second chance, but she like cheated again. So it's kind of like, really? But I don't think I would change it because I'm more stronger than I would have been if I didn't go through that. Also, I don't think I would have I actually worked at age 13.
Oh, wow.
So, because of that, because I wanted to help support. So, I don't think I would have ever worked as a young age and gained all these skills that I have and gain all these learning experiences and job careers and stuff like that. So, if I don't think I would have, but at the same time, it would have been nice to actually have my family connected and be together. But I feel like it would have made a big difference. But at the same time, I feel like I just learned from the experience.
And that's really, really inspiring. So Katya's only 16 years old and such a strong woman. Definitely a good role model. I would have to definitely commend you for having such a positive outlook on that experience. And I really appreciate you being able to, again, share that personal experience with myself and everybody else who's watching. So with regards to like takeaway messages for today's show, I would say definitely take your relationships and really think about them. I mean, you can be having so much fun in the moment and having, you can be in a relationship for like 2 or 3 years, but if you're going to be considering getting married, make sure you're really thinking, why am I getting married? Is it for a tax write-off? Is it to prove something to my family? Is it, because I really want to spend the rest of my life with that person? And really make sure that the other person feels the same way. Do you have any other takeaway messages, Katya, that maybe might be good?
I mean, just follow your heart, basically.
Yeah.
If the other person wants something else and you feel like you don't want that, it's hard to walk away, but it's better for you to find something that is connected.
Mutual.
Yeah.
Exactly, because as Katya had mentioned earlier, one of the biggest reasons people end up getting divorced is because of miscommunication. And that's something that I think could be potentially avoided or at least caught early. If you think that there's a lot of miscommunication issues, maybe you might want to fix that before you think about getting married.
There's also therapists for couples, and just in case you guys need that.
Yeah,
there's a lot and that helps a lot too. So
definitely. So thank you so much, Katya. I just want to thank Katya. This was her first show with YouthLINE, the first of many more to come. Thank you again so much for coming to the show and sharing your experiences with myself and everyone else. If you guys want to watch Katya again, please stay tuned. She'll be on future shows. And our next show next Tuesday will be on Muhammad Ali and Prince. Stay tuned.
Thank you.